Okay, so now let's start. For any question you have, please write down on the chat window. Well, I hope that we should have been in the classroom today, but unfortunately, I find it unlikely because quite a few friends here were not on campus, and also I do not find any appropriate device that can provide a very good broadcasting quality online. So that is why I decided to go online instead. I'm not in my office, so the connection not so good. If you face any interruption, just let me know. For friends who are now having access to YouTube, or if you're overseas, you can just visit my channel on YouTube and the link as well. I suppose the YouTube CDN provides a better quality of connection and might somewhat better quality of audio or video. Okay, so last week we had a discussion about the general ideas of why we study corporate finance. Indeed, corporate finance is a very important branch of finance that focuses mainly on issues of firms. For example, how the firm operates optimally, how firms finance and invest their money externally, and how firms can enhance their efficiency by increasing or in promoting the quality of corporate governance and to provide the best structure also. Well, today we have a very beginning of the course by referring to the very first chapter of the book. Something can be very difficult to understand initially, but don't worry. You might better understand it when you have finished some other chapters. This is very common for quite a few courses, right? For example, in the first year, you just find management or finance or even accounting very boring, very difficult, or sometimes very challenging. But after finishing a few courses, you will find, well, something not that difficult, right? It's normal in finance as well. So that is why I provided a topic saying, first things first. This indeed borrowed from a very famous textbook named New Concept English. About 30 years ago, when I took my very first English class with this textbook, the name impressed me. First things first. Now, 30 years later, I'm trying to teach my daughter how to speak English. And again, I borrowed some materials from that textbook, even though the textbook itself can be more than 6 decades years old. Right. And something about the office hours will be changed, unfortunately. You might be willing to write to me via email. Teaching@petergood.net is preferred. And you can also use the university email address. But remember that if you send your email from overseas, like you use Outlook.com, Hotmail, Gmail, it can be delayed. So I would prefer a Peter Good email address because that email address will indeed located on the Outlook server. So there'll be no problem to receive emails either from domestic servers or from international servers. My office number is 813, and remember, Minder Hall, 8th floor. That's a building next to the management school. Don't go to the wrong building because management school does not have 8th floor. They only have 5. And phone number, sorry, I can't remember. But don't worry, when you receive my email, there's a signature, right? And appear in the signature, I provide both my mobile phone and my office number. Pick anyone up you wish. And for the other slots beside the office hours, no worry, send me an email. And for this course, as you know, because we have a combination of Chinese and international students, and that is why this course will be delivered in English. Sometimes I will use Chinese words to help Chinese students to better understand the concept. But under most occasions, English will be the only working language in this course. All the texts, I mean textbooks, my writing on the blackboard or whiteboard, course material that I send you after class occasionally, and the reading materials, if any, will all be in English. There'll be no Chinese. So you will need a very good dictionary if you're not confident about it with your English capacity. And for our examinations, the final examination will be a closed book examination, of course, according to the law of the university, and it will be English. And for the answers, it should be in English. However, you can use Chinese sometimes in case you forget about the words or terms, or you find it very difficult to express your ideas in the correct English grammar. However, any Chinese answer appeared on the paper will be downgraded for 10%. That is, for example, you're having a very good answer, which will actually give you a full mark, but you were in Chinese. So the top selling of your marking will be 90 instead of 100 because there's a 10% downgrade. And also you will find this course can include various topics. And we have only about 16 to go. So I will go through things very quickly. And that means I won't repeat. It will be your own job to have a review and to have a full understanding of the course material. The reason why the book is so thick is that it provides quite a few details, examples, or even stories and the media articles. This material may not be covered in your teaching session, given the time limited. However, trust me, going through all these articles, all the details, or even examples can really help you to understand the core ideas of the chapter, which are very important. And you are expected to work on some assignments. There'll be some calculations, even though not too much. For example, something related to the interest rates, to time value of money, to some budgeting. You must make sure all the works are done on your own hands because nobody can help you in the final examination, right? According to the university's rule, it is your obligation to join every class. In case you have any problem when you travel, for example, you are banned from entering the university, or you have something emergency, drop me an email. Under most occasions, I will approve. These reasons includes, but are not limited to, sickness, your friends come to visit you, you want a party, and so on. Anyway, when having a party, don't drink too much. It's bad for health. Okay. The very first thing, we had discussion about the course last week. Why we need this course, corporate finance? This ended up two pictures from a very famous bookstore in Shenzhen, even though it had been closed. And you will find the book named Corporate Governance or Corporate Finance is in fact among the books that are trying to teach you how to become a millionaire or even a billionaire, right? For example, how can you walk in the Wall Street freely? How can you accumulate your wealth like a snowball, which can become larger and larger with rolling? And also, it can try and teach you how to earn bigger money in the stock market, even though most of these books does not work. And you find corporate finance is highly connected to these topics. Otherwise, there's no reason why we put these books there. But is it true? It might be true or it might be false. The reason why I say it's true is because corporate finance provides you a very systematic framework of knowledge on how we organize a firm, how we operate a firm in an efficient manner, how we support the firm by establishing different channels of financing. How can we liquidate the money that we have by external investing? Or more importantly, we will have a discussion about different types of interest rates. For example, if the interest rate is accrued only annually, semi-annually, monthly, or even on a daily basis, what are the impacts? Can things be different by doing this? And there might be some tricks as well. When you're receiving a call from an insurance agent trying to persuade you to buy in some products which have a duration for 30 years, they will say, well, once you buy the product, in 30 years, the money you have will be doubled or even more. Will you buy it or not? We'll have solutions there as well. And more broadly, we might have some consideration about we have a device or equipment that have been used for many years. And now it's time for us to decide, shall we continue to use this device or equipment with a very big construction and inspection? By doing so, we need a lot of money. Or we abandon that and buy a new one. It's just like in your third year of your college, you have a computer that has been 33 years old, and you're now considering whether I should buy a new laptop or continue with this product, with this old laptop, with some upgrades. When referring to upgrades, we need some money to buy some SSDs, solid state disks, or we might want to upgrade the memory by purchasing some memory sticks. Or for some very advanced laptops with workstations, you have a chance to upgrade the display card or GPUs. But all these stuffs, all these operations can be expensive. Or alternatively, we just give up this old laptop and you just pay a bit to the market and buy a new one. However, purchasing a new laptop with outstanding performance can be costly as well. So, shall we make an upgrade, or shall we go and buy a new one? This is also a very common decision in corporate finance world. Additionally, we might want to finance our firms by issuing some bonds or borrowing money from others, or even issue some stocks, persuading our investors in potential to come and buy. But how can we value the bond we issued? How can we value the stocks that we issued? Because the valuation is so important that we can never miss that. All the things will be discussed in this course in its turn. And in fact, these are highly related to the stock market price valuations and to the investments. Because among many types of investments, which you will learn in other courses, for example, by hedging, by speculation, but one of the branches of investment that we adopt today is called value investment. That is, the rationale is that we screen the whole market or a whole industry that we're familiar with. We try to find a firm that is undervalued. And then we pop in the money, we take a long position, and for a few months, even a few years, we just sell them to gain the capital gains. This way of investment is called value relevant, value investment, and is highly recommended by Buffett. So, but to screen the whole market or to deepen the analysis of firm, we will need some very fundamental knowledge about the firm itself, the business model, the structure, the characteristics of their management team, quite a few things that are needed in this framework is in fact related to the course of corporate governance, corporate finance. And we have two types of courses in this area indeed. One is called corporate finance, which is for undergrad students that you will have. For another part, we call that advanced corporate finance. This course is mainly based on modern economics. The main topic today about advanced corporate finance is not about time value of money, not about the very basic ideas of bonds, stocks, or even decisions about MAs. They are more referring to motivations of team of management team. They are about the conflict of interest in potential among different parties. They are about the shortism in the market. What is called shortism? SHORTISM. Shortism is just a phenomenon that can frequently be observed in the market, where the manager of the firm only focuses on the short-term profits instead of a long-term perspective of the market. This is not about the efficiency only. It is indeed about the human behavior, right? So these are also advanced topics. If we have any time left, maybe in the final week, we will have a very brief discussion about the corporate governance, which is a very hot topic nowadays in this area. Okay, so when referring to the corporate finance, the very first lesson or the very first thing we have discussed is about the firm. Before having a very good talk about the firm, we will have a question. Why do we need a firm? Why there are so many firms, large and small, high-end, or very low labor concentrated exist in the market. What are they doing? And why do you want to need why do you want to study it? Right? So this question was also raised by a very young scholar in his 20s. His name was Ronald Coase. At the time when raising the question, he was a student in study at London School of Economics and Political Science. Well, nowadays, he is a very famous economist teaching in University of Virginia for over 40 years. But at the time, the reason why he raised a question is that he got a chance in late 1920s. He got a scholarship that reward him a trip to the United States. At the time, in 1920s, in just period to the very Great Depression, everything in US was so prosperous, and there were very large firms or even groups like a Standard Oil, Rockefeller Group, right? And these firms are much larger, tens or hundreds or even thousands larger than the firms in UK. Because in 19th century, the UK faced its first or second wave of industrial revolution. And at the time, there were quite a few firms set up in UK, mainly on textiles and on clothing. They just import the cotton in raw from India by sea and made them into clothing and then sell overseas or in domestic market. However, for most firms in UK, they were not large. They were indeed, in my words, like an enhanced version of warehouse. But in US, they have very big groups that incorporates the suppliers, the customers, which we call vertical integration. Or they have very great occupation in the home market, say 80% or 90%, by merging up all different firms working in the same industry. So here is the question. Why? Why do we need so large firms? Because the firms are so large, they're not firms anymore. They are indeed emperors, empires, and the boss of these firms are just like an emperor in the empire, an industrial empire. So what we needed? He had a very thorough consideration for years and write the paper. The paper was published in 1927 or 1928 with the name The Nature of the Firm. At the time when this paper was published, it was not famous. He was just ignored because at the time he was only a very young lecturer at LSE. But in 1960s, when people start to look into the ideas about some theoretical backgrounds of the firms, for example, the property rights, the theory developed by Elgin, people start to look back about the publications, about academic outputs period to the era of Elgin, and they find the paper, The Nature of the Firm, in 1920s or 30s. And the core idea of this paper was not about property rights, because at that time there was no such term. Coase named a core reason of forming up large firms as transaction cost. It's very easy to understand it, right? When you have a transaction, there'll be some cost. The cost includes the time and money you devoted to find your counterparty, to find the one who are willing to run a business with you, or to find your customer who are willing to buy it. It takes time. For example, when you have a chance to select which class to go, you have 3 or 4, even 5 professors to select from. You do some due diligence work, right? You do some research. For example, whether the professor is kind enough to allow you to go when you're in the emergency or you have a party, whether the professor is kind enough to have a very high score in your final examination, whether this professor is a bit too strict and they ask you to do everything that you hate. All these factors, all these materials you collect will finally form you up the final decision on which one to go. And but you need time, and sometimes you need money because you invite some friends who are in senior grades, asking them, well, which one to go, which professor is better, right? All these things are not free. There's no free loan in the world, so you need to pay. And the money you pay or the time you devote to sacrifice are all these types of costs that you have to bear. And sometimes it's simply easy. If you're having a course at Shenzhen University or in management school or in school of economics, you have a lot of friends there. So it might take you about 10 or 20 minutes to have everything you need. However, if you're paying a visit overseas, for example, to my mother's school in UK, the Lancaster University Management School, and you are now having a chance to pick up some courses there. However, you have no idea which one to select. You have no friends there at Lancaster. And you even don't have enough confidence about your English reading and writing capacity when you need to write an email. So, on this occasion, you might spend hours or even days on collecting the same material that will only spend you 10 or 20 minutes at the Shenzhen University. Now you will see the transaction cost among different scenarios can be highly different, right? And it is the same in the firm's environment. Sometimes we find it is pretty simple to get our customers. For example, if I'm a fisherman and I'm trying to get some customers who are trying to buy fish, it's very simple. You drive your ship to the port where you will find quite a few customers in potential waiting for you. Or you can get all the fishes loaded, drive them to the nearest fishing market where you will find the customers. However, for some other products, for example, you have developed a program that would target on improving the efficiency of deep networking. You just don't know who need that, right? And you're now in US or now you're now in Pakistan. However, your customer might be in China, in UK, or in US. And you just don't know where to find it. So the cost can be huge. And also, for some large firms in US, now they're trying to find a technology that can save up some bandwidth on the server. They just don't want to write themselves. They would just go straight forward to buy or not to buy. However, they find there were millions of thousands of programmers in the world. They have no idea which one to go to ask for help. At this time, you'll find for both sides, it is time consuming, it can be very costly to match them up, right? So, borrowing some ideas, some terms in 1970s, we will find if there's a very large information asymmetry. Information asymmetry means information inequality or disadvantage and advantage between two parties of a transaction. We used to have a discussion about the efficiency or transparency market. In ideal environment, you'll find it a very good chance, a very good opportunity to know each other very well. You know me, I know you, you know what I know, and I know what you know. This is called full transparency. Full transparency. There's no burden, obstacles among the parties people. However, this is only in the ideal environment that is used for research purposes. In daily life, it can never happen. Right. It's just like before the Valentine's Day, you find a lot of questions online asking what kind of gift would best suit my girlfriend well. Well, sometimes you have to guess, right? Will she prefer something in the comics, or would she prefer a teddy bear? You don't know that, right? And you will sometimes encounter some foolish boys trying to buy his girlfriend a set of PC games, right? How can this happen? Well, this is called information asymmetry, because the boy does not know well what his girlfriend prefers. And definitely his girlfriend never expect that her boyfriend can really do things like this, right? So conflicts or battles came out only because of this misunderstandings or because of this information asymmetries. So let's get into our conclusion then. When in the environment, you face very large information asymmetry. That is, you are in a huge information disadvantage. You will find it is very hard for you to find the right person to do business, no matter whether he or she is your customer or your supplier. So, now please tell me, when you are in a situation you find it very difficult to find a customer or your supplier within a reasonable range of cost, what will you do then? Definitely, I suppose the very best way is to DIY, do it yourself. because you can then find people reliable doing that on your behalf, right? So Professor Coase did the same idea. He found that when the firm is now in the environment with very high transaction costs, which is very likely in 1920s, it will be natural for the people or entrepreneurs to form a very large firms, a series of very large firms that include their suppliers, the firm itself, and sometimes even departments or units that can use their product as a source for further processing. And that was the reason why we have firms. And that is also the reason why we have very large firms. So this is the nature of the firm and the very early story of the firm as well. I would recommend you a series of documentaries produced by the American Heritage Channel. I suppose the title is Who Saved the US? And they had a review about all the large firms that exist in US in early 1920s. Now, have a rest. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, so let's move on. Now, we had discussion about why you need a phone. This is theoretical. But trust me, if you can tell the story in your own words, when you face an interview, either for a large firm or for your postgraduate studies, trust me, the interviewers or professors would be very impressive because even my own math students cannot tell the story in full or in a logical manner. However, this is important. Now, we have set up a relation between the transaction cost and the reason why we need a firm. And it provides the explanation that the transaction cost is really high, and only by forming a very large firm that includes everything we need, ranging from the suppliers of raw materials to the consumption of our products for further processing, we can lower down the transaction costs to the reasonable manner, and then we can run the firm smoothly with profitability and with sustainability. However, now, can you please explain why we nowadays have so many small firms, very young firms around Shenzhen, around the Chinese Great Bay Area, or even on Silicon Valley in US? They are tiny, they're small, or even tiny. They have only about 20 or 30 people altogether, which is even smaller than a department in Microsoft or Google. How can these firms survive nowadays without turning themselves into very big firms? For example, I suppose you have heard AlphaGo, a very famous product based on AI or deep learning from Google, who have beaten down quite a few champions on the Go game. Oh, sorry, if you don't mind Chinese here a bit, do you know Go? Go Go. In Chinese, it's called the Weiqi. Okay, now the AlphaGo is not playing games anymore, not chess, no Go game. They are now devoting their resources to the field of medicine. They are now trying to focus on very early diagnosis of cancer by going through the CT images or MRI images or other sources. But you would not believe that in early days of AlphaGo, they only have a small office in London. They have about 20 people in total. Even now, I'm not sure whether the total number of the staff go exceed 100. And now we have a reason. Now we have a question. How can these small firms survive nowadays? Does that provide a contract example, or does that contradict with the paper written by Ronald Coase 100 years ago with the name of the nature firm? Because in 1900s, the US has a number of very large firms in the hope of lowering down the transaction cost. And nowadays, we have numerous small firms. We have hundreds of firms who are doing a very single product. They have very small number of staffs. They have only one small office. They can either be in Shenzhen, in Hong Kong, in Dubai, in Frankfurt, in Paris, in London, New York, or even in some remote areas. How can it be? Now, we are using the Zoom, a very popular online meeting platform, right? We know that this is a US product. However, all their developers, all the technicians were in fact in China, in Suzhou, my hometown. And this is also a very small group of firms. They don't have very large number of staffs. Can we say it is in fact a contradiction to the transaction theory or the transaction cost theory? No. Still remember why we have large firms in the US 100 years ago? It is because at the time, people find it very hard to seek for the right customer, the right suppliers. Because at the time, when you need to find a customer, you have to go online. You have to go on the newspaper rather than online. There's no internet. There's no database. There's even no radio at the time. The only thing you have, and now that we call that flat media, that is newspaper, ads, printed on the paper. But at the time, even a newspaper that can be sold across the country is rare, let alone an international newspaper. Now we can easily access to the New York Times in US, the Financial Times in UK, right? Or even the Japanese Times in Tokyo. But 100 years ago, you will find it can be very difficult for you to buy a newspaper even published in your neighbor city. Right. That's the reason why. Now, instead, we have very fast connection of internet. We can have a connection to the United States database in less than 2 seconds. So, in theory, we get everything. And also, if you type in the keywords in Google search box, you will find everything you want. But remember, Google or search engine is not old products. They were not available until the start of the century. In 1995, or no, in 1996 or 1997, when I was a pupil or a junior student in the middle school, I learned how to surf the internet. Because at the time, my middle school established a PC room with a very slow connection to the internet. I used to spend 30 minutes in the class only to register my very first email box. And I spent another 10 minutes to send an email to my lecturer so I could get a score in the final examination. At time, there's no Google, there's no Baidu. There's the very popular site is China.com, Sina.com. At time, we call that home page. That is the home for internet users. You open a page and click the links, directing you to different areas or different sites. For example, I would prefer to get some shopping. I would prefer to get some information about films, etc. But now we don't need a home page, right? What we really need is Google or Baidu, even though I would prefer Google instead. You type in anything you want, even you don't have to open Google itself. Type your words in the address bar of your browser, and you'll be directed to the search results. This is the new way we use the internet, right? So nowadays, information becomes abundant. The cost of searching is not costly anymore. And you find now your concern is not about whether to find information, but is about whether I'm able to absorb all the key information that I have collected in a reasonable time range. My professor in UK used to tell me a story. He said, in 1970s, when he was a young student finishing his PhD, he found it's very difficult to get a journal in US and then he was in UK. For my professors in China, he told me, even in 1990s, it is a very, very rare opportunity for him to read about the journals, academic journals published overseas. So times different. Given the very fast technology development on information sharing, searching, and storing, we have plenty of databases that can help us find the right information we want. So nowadays, we don't need to form very big firms, including the suppliers, including the customers. No, we don't need that. We just open the browser, type in the words, and then we get a customer, and then we get the suppliers. And even we can have a search about the price of products we're going to sell. This will be very helpful for a pricing strategy. And also we find it very easy to get track of raw materials that we need in the long time horizon. So we can even predict the pricing future under the help of powerful computer and some technologies like regression, right? In general, we call that econometrics. And given all the convenience, we would have very little extent of information asymmetry in the market. And that is the key of how young and small firms can really survive. And that is also explains why all these firms were located in some developed or the most proper cities in China, in Asia, and in the world. Right? Because we need access to information. Right. However, no matter whether we are running a very large firm in 1920s in US, or we are running a very small entrepreneurship project in a very small office nowadays in China. Now, the one thing that we can never overlook, we need protection. The technology we have improved, we have innovated, should be protected. The design of our products, the way we run the market can also be protected. The index or the indicator that we use for analysis should be protected. So the very basis or the very fundamental of having a firm is the property rights protection. And this is in fact listed and highlighted in constitutions in many different countries and regions. Well, China is included. Now, we can find that the reason why we need a firm. But then we have another question. How can we organize a firm? How can we set up a firm, or in which manner, in which type? If you have any chance to take part in a course of, in China we say, the law of economics, and in UK they call that the corporate law or the corporate act, you find the way we set up a firm and the preparations we need to do are all in fact included in the law. And the law differs in different countries, but there's something in common. For example, the types of business. Here in the slide, I list 3 main types. The very first one is we call a sole proprietorship. You can call that an individual business. For example, I am fired by the Shenzhen University because of my poor performance on teaching and on research output. This is very common nowadays in the university in China. So I have to survive myself, right? To feed myself. By what? My friends had a strong suggestion that I should set up a stand just at the gate of the university, selling cell phone screen protectors. Because it persuaded me, saying that the business of screen protector is so prosperous that they even have friends of friends running this business, buying big houses, even though they have never told me why. And how can they be? And in addition, some suggest that I should have a stand about academics. For example, provide suggestions of how to write a master thesis, given my years of training on research. And they will say that this business can earn more than the screen protector. Okay, now, no matter whether I'm running a business on screen protector or I'm running a business for academic writing, I am the only owner and the only boss of this firm, right? I do not need a partner. I do not any investor. I don't have to set up a board because I am the only runner, the only owner in this firm. This is called individual business. In fact, the individual business is the major part of the business that are running in the market. I will show you the diagram later based on US market. And sometimes when the business turns into bigger, for example, I have been a monopoly of screen protector for the whole area, including 5 or 6 universities. All the students are becoming my customer. And at this time, I suddenly find it is impossible for me to do all the screen protectors myself because I have too many customers every day. And also, some students complain about my location that is close to Sun University because they're now studying in Peking University or in Tsinghua, and it travels a long way for them to come and to get the protector. So, after analysis about the background data of sales, I decide to have a second stand at the gate of Peking University. However, as the only individual of the business, I find it's really impossible for me to run 2 stands at the same time. At this time, what I need would be a partner. He would or she would run the stand at the gate of the Peking University, and I will stick to my own place in front of the Shenzhen University. So now, the new guy who's helping me to run a new business at the Peking University is indeed becoming my partner of the business. And this is only the very starting point of partnership, because we can have numerous tens, hundreds, even thousands of partners. For example, you might have heard something called the accounting firm, right? And there are many CPAs working there, trying to audit the firm's audit target, issuing a certificate stating whether their customers' bookkeeping, their financial reporting is good or not. The certificate is independent periodically and can mean a lot. But what about the organization of the accounting firms? You find they have thousands, at least hundreds of different partners. But remember, partnership firms can be divided into two different types. One is called one comes with limited liability, and the other comes with unlimited liability. So what is the difference between limited liability and online limited liability? Well, it's simple. Limited liability means that the business is business and you stand for yourself only. If the performance of the firm was so poor that all the money that people have devoted or invested into the firm is now going with the wind. Well, but even the money that the firms have cannot fully compensate the loss that the firms are accrued to. Under the framework of limited liability, the partners will have no obligation to pay back the rest. That is, they secure their personal wealth. However, for unlimited liabilities framework, things are becoming very different. The partners, each partner has very strong and unrejected obligations to pay back all the money that the firm is obliged to. So now see, even though the approval rate for the partnership firms without limited liability is somewhat easier, it comes with some very different sources of risks. So this is about the partnership. And the final, the most advanced and the most important innovation today is called the corporations. In fact, the corporation comes with something very similar to the partnership firms with liability. Well, first things first, all the firms that are registered as a corporation can waive their loss from the money. That is, the managers will not have a chance or will not be obliged to pay back all the loans of the firm. And that is why you find the approval rate is somewhat lower, because a popularity of this kind of product can soon result in on-purpose rejection or bank loan supervision, which in turn, the misconducts in turn can be very problematic. Okay, for corporations, the most obvious difference is that for a corporation, we have hundreds or tens of thousands or even more investors who were buying our shares, ranging from all different countries in the world. And for the things that done this way, you'll find a reason why this kind of corporation becomes very popular. This is because there's no OT for these guys, right? Do you know OT? OT is a short abbreviation of overtime. In Chinese, we call that 加班. Yes, very good point, Jing. If you set up a firm with limited liability, you don't have to compensate the liability with your own personal wealth. However, if you are having a firm with unlimited liability, you have the chance to show hand. Well, it's really pleasant to see someone writing a message like that, because I'm wondering whether you were awakening or you were just sleeping. Okay, so you'll find cooperation is widely seen in the world is the most popular form nowadays. However, for very small business runners, cooperation can mean a lot of obligations, a lot of law enforcement, and they can be very challenging to cope up with. And if you decide to invite someone professional doing this for you, mainly a lawyer, it can be very costly. Now we have a diagram of different types of businesses in US. For the left part, you'll see the sole proprietorship or the individual business occupied 72% of the business in the US. And corporations stands for 18%. Partnership, that is a very raw form of partnership with unlimited liability, and comes with only 3%. This makes very good sense, right? Because no one wants to sacrifice their own money into the business, even though they have a dream about the entrepreneurship. And for the right diagram, it's about the revenue. You will find nearly 82% of the revenues of business world in US were in fact from corporations. And the individual business occupied only 4% of total revenue. Combining all these two diagrams together, you find a very interesting story. That is, the majority does not earn the majority. What I mean? What I mean is that the individual business occupied more than 70% of the whole companies in the US. They are indeed earning only 4% of revenues that are generated by the firms in US. However, for corporations, they only occupy 18% in terms of total numbers of businesses in the US. But it is this 18% of players among the whole group that formally generates 82% of revenues. Now you can see, but by comparing the occupation or the percentage of the revenue generated with the number of the type of firms that exist in the market, you will see definitely corporations are always very big firms and very profitable businesses. And so individuals, even though having very large numbers in count, cannot earn sufficient number of knowledge or the main food like rice at the same time. It's just like, it's not a pity anyway. It's just like the nature of the world. So, when running a business, would you prefer an individual business or a corporation? Some people will say, well, I would prefer to run a corporation because you did tell me that the corporation earns very big amount of money. Is that true? No, because you missed one thing. Yes, you're right. The occupation. Oh no. The corporations earn very big amount of money. That's true. Nobody can deny that. However, it is not the type of a firm, say, corporations, that eventually lead to very large amount of return financially. It is because for these large corporations, they have very natured business model. They have very natured products. They have very loyal customers. All these things altogether makes that firm a very profitable one. So the reason the decision of the business type is not the core reason on whether the firm is profitable or not. It is the internal impulse, the business model in mind, that eventually drives the company to the very top rank of the market. So here's a summary that I've made myself. For self business, it works good. But it's only one solution. Only one solution means that you can do everything in the efficiency manner, but never expect something like quick enough to compete with the server or with the workstation. Partnership, anyway, it might be a very good. However, we have one problem. Because we have more than one partner there. And the ideas or the intentions among different partners can differ. And difference or the age dispersions among ideas of partners can result in a concern. However, for a partnership firm, there's no board, and we don't need a board meeting. So, why not find a dim sum store, have some nice food, have some tea, and then have some discussions about our business trainings. Okay. For LLC is a short term for limited liability corporations, even though in this book we call it firms. Well, for these firms, they have even more partners than a traditional partner firm. Part of it is because we find The LLC would be much larger in size than that of traditional partnership firms. So, what can be rewarded? It needs compromising among very different people with very different grounds. If firms fail to make this, there can either be a lawsuit referring to racial discrimination or with some other terms like dangerous driving. So this is LLC. Harm corporations, well, it provides all the advantage techniques, all the characteristics we need to study this course well from our senior friends from senior A grades now sitting there in front of the audiences. So, what can be said about the corporations? Well, good luck. Right. So, this is the different types of firms. Well, another rest, another break for 5 minutes. Okay, so let's move on. Now, given that we have very different types of businesses, and you can infer that the complexity of decision making can also be verified. This is because, let's say, if you're running a very simple individual business, you do not have others to argue with. You do not have to compromise because you are the world and you decide everything. And of course, you have no way to excuse because when a failure, you have to overtake all the responsibilities for errors. And when referring to partnership firms, you have several partners. You have to make an agreement or a consensus before making a very big action or a very big decision. And the difficulty of making an agreement can be even more difficult when you are running a corporation, where the investors can be hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands. And it is unlikely to meet up everyone's taste, right? Well, so for the corporations, it is very unlikely for you to ask for the opinions from every investor who are having a share of your company. How can we do it then? Well, we will need to set up different layers. We need some representatives to stand for the massive investors. And these guys who are selected, remember, are called the directors. These directors are not elected, they are selected. And these people sitting all together forms a kind of community, which we call the board of directors. And all the important affairs like acquisition, spin off of assets, or whether to extend the current business or whether to extend our business into a new market, all these things that can result in very material impact on the shareholders' wills must be approved by the board of directors before it is into action. However, this board of directors or sitting on board do not have time, interest, or intention to run the business on a daily basis. And then they'll have to hire somebody else doing this kind of work for them. These people they hire is named the management team. So now you can see the board of directors own the business and the management team runs the business on behalf of the board of directors. Never confuse these two groups of people because they have conflict of interest naturally. And it is very hard for them to fully compromise. For example, the board of directors, who are indeed the owners, they often have very large shares of the company. They would have strong preference to sustain the growth of the business in the long-term horizon. It focus on the future perspective of the firm. However, the management team, on the other hand, they are in fact, we call that high-end employee. What they are looking forward to are not something we call long-term perspectives. All they really focus on is in fact job security, the money received before the end of the month, the pay and the bonus, and so on. So you find the management team would be more likely to have a preference of short-term targets. On most occasions, the pursuing of short-term targets is in line with the long-term perspective of the firm. However, they can have conflicts. Some research in 1980s, 1990s, or in recent years have documented that on some occasions, the management team would have a very strong preference on short-term targets that can satisfy or even increase their own wealth. However, at the compensation of losing values in the future, for which they do not care. Guess about the reason why. This is because the management teams have contracts, and for each contract, they have expiration dates. That is, they only care about what can happen within the contract terms. They care about whether they can receive enough money, enough financial reward for their working. After one or two contracts, they'll just leave. And why do they have to care about the future? So, a question is now raised. How can we compromise or align the interest of the two groups of people so that the firm can grow and can sustain well, while the management team would find it very satisfactory to do all these things? The conflict of interest between the management team and board of directors are indeed defined as agency problems. Anyway, we have very different types of agency problems in literature or in research. Besides the conflicts between the board of directors and the management team, we also have some conflicts between stockholders or equity holders and debt holders regarding the risk-taking incentives. We even have in China conflicts between large and small shareholders in terms of expropriation. Even though the latter two forms of agency problems will seldom be discussed in textbook, they are more likely to appear only in academic outputs or academic papers. They should be attentioned, right? And should not be overlooked. Okay, for simplicity, let's focus on the conflict of interests before board of directors and the management team. Now, can you think about any way for the benefit alignments? Definitely, the management team wants money, and the board of directors wants long-term sustainability. If by any chance can we link the return of the management team with the sustainability or the long-term growth of the firm in future, we get it right. And that is, in fact, the very fundamental rationale of designing, of compensation package designing, that is now very popular and of very great attention among practitioners. For the composition of the executive compensation package, they are indeed comprised of different parts. The base part. The base part is quite similar to the salary or the way that we receive as common employees. This is always fixed, unchanged, and it always decided by a lot of factors, including your past working experience, your rank in the company, and in Japan, your age. I used to have an interview in Japan University. They told me that, well, Jun, your salary can increase when you get older. I got confused. I asked them, why my salary can increase with my age? They said, older people, it should be respected. And the one way to show our respect is to distribute the money. Well, very natural. Very good. Right. So when you get old and if you want to earn some more money, go to Japan. Okay. So this is the base part. And for the second part, which is called bonus. Bonus, you can treat the bonus as something we say in extra. That is kind of prize or reward. If you are running your firms well in current year, for example, the ROE exceeds the standards or criteria that we have pre-configured in contract, you are rewarded. It's natural, right? Because you have done a very good job and your performance is outstanding, and we can see the performance of the firm is now developing very rapidly. Well, as the head of the management team, as some important members in the team, you are all rewarded. And the reward is called bonus. However, the bonus focuses on only a very short horizon and cannot help in aligning the long-term sustainability and growth of the firm together with the management's counter revenue or their financial rewards. To further solve this problem, we have a third layer of this. We call that options. Options is kind of in financial derivatives that is linked to stock price movements. It rewards you not something in reality, but a kind of right. That is, you can have the right to buy in the firm stock with a fixed price at a fixed time or before fixed time, depending on whether it is a European option or an American option. However, so why do you think that this kind of the rewarding of options can really help? Is it because if you cannot make sure that the firm can grow and sustain in the future, the price can fluctuate. and you will find the option can be out of money. Out of money means that the option becomes a piece of waste paper because you find it's even cheaper to buy the stock in the market when than via the options. So to make sure that you can earn something from the options, it is a must for you to make sure that the option is in the money. And to make it in the money, you have to make sure the stock price goes up and is appreciated, not depreciated. But how can we make sure, how can we ensure that stock price can go up? Even though we find it very difficult to make a stock price go up every day, it is something reasonable to make or to maintain in the long horizon. And a direct impact, a direct determinant of stock price is the performance, is the investors' confidence about the future perspective of the firm. If the market is very confident about the future of a firm, the price will definitely go up. Let me take you an example of Tesla. Tesla was issued for get listed online several years ago. At the time, Tesla was still suffering from very huge losses. I noticed that the price of Tesla is about 217 at the time of 27. Oh no, 2017. At the time, I regarded this price as too high because I would never expect that a lost firm can sell its share price up to more than 200 US dollars. Well, the result proved that I was wrong because nowadays the Tesla's price has been 4 digits, right? So now you see the relief of agency problems between the board of directors or the business owner and the management team who are running the business on behalf of the owners on a daily basis is to make sure that the financial return that the management team has must be in line with the long-term perspective of these owners. An option is one way that can make this done by encouraging the management team to do things, to make decisions that can impact the firms positively in the long horizon. Because they must make sure that their bonus or their options can really be in the money when they are allowed to exercise. Otherwise, it is a loss of money, right? So this is a way of corporate governance. Of course, that's the very fundamental part of it. Now let's see the structure of a firm. You can see that the board of directors on top, it makes sure it monitors everything. And the board of directors would appoint a guy with the name of CEO who will charge all the business affairs, all the affairs of a company. And CEO can have 2 assistant positions. One is called CFO, Chief Financial Officer, who deals with all the financial affairs, something about money. And for Chief Operating Officer, who are in charge of daily operations of business, like sales, manufacturing, purchasing the products or equipment, all sorts of things. Okay, let's focus on CFO mainly. CFO will have a charge of two different groups or departments in some firms. One is on controller, the other is on treasurer. Controller means something that you monitor. You're trying to make sure that bad things will not happen. If they do, have a report and take some actions. For treasurers, however, they are mainly dealt with something that are decision-making related. For example, the capital budgeting. This refers to how much money you're going to spend in next year and in which form, in which items. And for risk management team, it is about to recognize, analyze, and to implement the policies that will avoid some kind of risks. This is a very important part of the firm, especially when we're trying to do some business with overseas counterparts. The risk will be high, not including but not limited to, say, currency risk, right? The bankruptcy risk, or even some bad debts. And also we have credit market management to ensure that if or not our external financing from banks or from other borrowers can sustain reasonably without any disruptions. Okay. So what is the target or what is the goal for the corporate finance? Is that about money? We learn it because we just want to, we do it because we just want to make money. It's true and it's not true. The reason why I say true is that nearly all the courses in finance are about money, about how to earn more money while given a certain level of risk. If we were trying to pursue the money but without any consideration about risk, it's called gambling or speculation in finance terms. Now let's see, what is the target? If you are running a very individual business, you will find everything is in alignment. All the earnings are yours, all the losses are yours as well. So the target is, well, to make money. Because once you maximize the profit of the firm, you are maximizing my personal wealth. For partnership, however, well, we have some conflicts that should be negotiated. And for limited partnerships, well, we have some more partners to go through. In old days, when I have a very small partnership firm, we spend 1 day for anything. Well, now it tends to be 1 week. Corporations, well, these are so complicated, it's just like rock science. So, the target is indeed a short-term and a long-term target. But remember, given that the management team are doing works on behalf of the owners, it is the responsibility of the management team to maximize the wealth of their owners. So maintaining and increasing the shareholders' wealth is the main target of auditing and the main target of protection. So be careful about it. Now, let's have a look at a very famous firm, which is called Berkshire Hathaway. If you're lucky enough to buy in some share with this firm in 1987, at the time the price was about $5 or $6, you are now earning the whole life, because at the time when I got a picture, the price is over 300,000 per share. And also, we have Amazon. It's early because the price of Amazon had been doubled several months ago. And we have Apple, which has split their shares, right? And what is the impact of account information? This is indeed a diagram from a very famous paper published in 1968. We call that the milestone of contemporary accounting research. In this diagram, you find that the price will go up for firms with positive unexpected earnings, and the price can go down for negative unexpected earnings. Right. And this is a summary of structure for four countries, including Germany, Japan, and the United Kingdom, on 3. And you will find their structure is quite different. In Japan, comes with very high ownership by other institutions. I can't understand it until I heard the story. One of my friends told me that if you are a debtor of another company, that is, you lend money to the company, you have the right to sit on board, hearing or monitoring every decision that they're going to make. So definitely the privacy. But who really care about the privacy anyway? Okay, let's have a look about the perspective of the Chinese capital market. You will see that in 1990 or 1991, when the market begins, we have only 1 or 2 shares to get listed. And there was a small peak in around 1996 and 1997, when we're closing 200 firms listed. But that was a very chaos period of time. We can have this online to see about the story, because the story is not appropriate to have a discussion here in class. And then the second peak comes in 2010 and then 2017. And you will see that in general, the number of firms listed in China is increasing, but with some very large and very deep up and downs. And we also have a table, and this is what I made by myself, about the listed from overseas. You will find quite a few overseas listings since 2004. As time when the technology firm in China booms, but we do not have any regulation for these firms to get this in the fast track. Because in China, when you're trying to list a firm, they have very strict requirements on your financial performance in the past 3 years. And firstly, they must be positive, and they must be profitable to a certain level. However, for young firms, this is very unlikely. They do not have the experience. They do not have accumulation. What they have only in their mind is the very fast response. The response to the market, the response to the customers, the response to their own heart. That's it. Now, we can see this is the study out. It's 10 years ago. It's about the total volumes of tradings of different markets in the whole world. You will find the Nasdaq comes with a very large part of trading, and for China at the time it was still quite small. But for the values instead, it's not on the Nasdaq, because Nasdaq are always favored by small technical firms. And now you see the New York Euronext contributes a lot, right? Okay, so given time, that's the end of our teaching today. Thank you for coming, and I will just send you an email later. I'm not sure whether my YouTube live will automatically save the video online. If not, I will upload that later. Wish you all have a nice day. Thank you. Any question you have? Well, hope to see you all in person. I hate online teaching. Well, you're very welcome. See you guys later. Have a good day.